r/entitled parents. My parents made every single birthday about my sister for the last 8 years. I'm 18 years old this year and have recently become independent from my parents. I have a sister who's about 10 years younger than I. She was an unplanned pregnancy and almost didn't make it to term. I don't know many details about how rough my mother's second pregnancy was since I was never told much, but I do know that it was so hard on her body that my mother could no longer have kids after my sister was born. She was in and out of the hospital repeatedly that year, and my mother almost didn't survive the birth. Because of this, my parents latched onto my little sister, and ever since then, I felt like I was just the other kid in the house, except for when they needed me as a free babysitter. The level of long-term favoritism my parents showed has me believing that they were genuinely sick in the head for not noticing exactly what it was doing to me. Now it's rebounding on them, which I'll explain here. Starting with my 11th birthday, my parents wanted me to let my sister blow out my candles because she was 2 years old and cried at the sight of a birthday cake that wasn't hers. I didn't want to do it, but my parents forced me into it. They relit the candles for me to do it again after her, but the moment felt completely ruined. The same thing happened the next year and the year after that, and so on. They just kept forcing it until it became the norm. My sister had to have presents on my birthdays as well, and I never got any on hers either. When I asked why, they just told me that I'm a boy and boys don't need to worry about it as much. I know I was a kid, but did they really think that was a smart thing to say? Not really. My parents would always choose a place my sister would like to be more in than me on my own birthday. Eventually, it became more like my sister got 2 birthdays a year and I got none. Beyond this, my parents made their entire lives revolve around my sister. If there was something I wanted to do, my sister had to want to do it too. Otherwise, it was vetoed unless I could do it alone. I learned to just lock myself in my room with my video games because they didn't seem to bother me there unless my sister wanted to come running in to annoy me. Hence, I put a lock on the door. My parents wanted me to remove it, but I freaked out because I was an angry teenager who was tired of being intruded on at any given time. My sister came running in more than once when I had no clothes on, and my parents were upset at me for being naked in my own room. When I pointed out how ludicrous that was, they withdrew their objection and just let me keep the lock. And my sister developed quite the princess complex because of how she was being spoiled on a daily basis, and she was very demanding. So I stayed away from her as much as I feasibly could, using whatever excuse I could to not have to deal with her, even if I had to make stuff up just to have time to myself. My parents hired a teenage babysitter and I got more personal time. Then the babysitter quit because my sister wouldn't listen to her and my parents tried to keep from paying her by saying she did a bad job. The girl got some other people involved and my parents finally paid her for what they owed her. Then they hired another girl to babysit on a regular basis and this one stayed. But my parents still made it clear that I was to be watching my sister any day I had free time, which I went out of my way to make busy at my part-time job if I could. My sister treated me as her personal butler and ordered me around. She even had a stupid nickname for me that she wouldn't stop using. Just hearing that nickname makes my blood boil. And if I didn't give her everything she wanted, she'd cry and call her parents. Then I'd be in trouble for mistreating her. We had many massive arguments because of this, and after I refused to yield anymore, my relationship with my parents devolved into barely any words spoken between us for some time. Yet, during my high school graduation, they had the nerve to brag to other parents that they were the reason I worked so hard. Well, they weren't wrong, but the reason they were thinking of was not the reason that actually happened. I worked hard, yeah, just biding my time for when I'd be free, but my parents acted like they'd done so much. Maybe they did before my sister was born, but afterwards, it was all about her. They didn't even ask about school until parent-teacher conferences came up. I graduated with a B and C average, and after my graduation, my parents just took me to some place where my sister would always have more fun than me, even though the trip was supposed to be for me. On my 18th birthday in July, things really boiled to the surface. Even though it was my 18th, it didn't feel like it was about me at all. I hoped to God that they were going to go to my favorite restaurant for once, but no, they had the party at the local knockoff Chuck E. Cheese, which is like the only place like it nearby. So it was the de facto celebratory destination whenever anything big was achieved, including my high school graduation. I did say it was a place my sister would enjoy more than me. I was surrounded by kids half my age having parties, and I was so bored with nothing to do but eat mediocre pizza and play claw machines and dated arcade games for tickets to cheaply made prizes that brought me no joy. Then, when it was time for my cake, my parents would come out with one that was pink with white flowers on it. Sure, it had my name on it, but it was very obviously not a boy's cake, and there were only 10 candles. My parents lit the candles and set them right in front of my sister to blow out. That's when it finally happened. I just had this mental moment of all the pent up hate mentally flashing before me, and then I just started ugly crying. I, an 18-year-old boy, was crying in front of the whole family. Everyone was so shocked that time seemed to just freeze. I got up and all the stuff I'd been holding in for the past 8 years just spilled out like word vomit. The entire family got to witness this event, and when it was finally over, I just walked outside to sit by the family car. Several relatives trailed out after me to say they were sorry and that they didn't know about the pink cake because my parents kept it covered until it was served. I said it didn't matter that they didn't know. They all sat back and watched as my life was taken over by Little Miss Sunshine for the past 8 years. I had no real birthdays or celebrations of my own. They were just all about her. And then on the biggest birthday of my life, they all expected me to just smile and nod like always while they handed my sister a cake that was entirely meant for her when it wasn't even her birthday. Some of them started giving me apologies, but they made the excuse that all this time they just thought I was okay with it because my parents said I was. I told them I was never okay with it. My parents forced it on me every year until I just pretended to accept it. I spread my arms out and said, "Look, where we are. Does it look like the place I wanted to celebrate my graduation and 18th birthday? No one even tried to stick up for me all this time. I'm just the other kid, while my sister gets everything. I didn't even get to have any of my friends there because my parents stopped letting me invite them long ago after they tried to voice their opinions over my sister getting to blow out my candles. There are 365 days in a year. Was it so bad to want one that was about me and not her? Instead, I'm treated like a greedy, entitled brat for wanting my own birthday. Then I just went back to ugly crying. By that point, my father had come outside to yell at me for making such a huge scene. My mother was crying and my sister was upset because I had ruined her moment. Everyone inside who had seen the commotion now thought they were bad parents. I ended up yelling back at my father that they were bad parents and he should know exactly why. After I said that, the rest of the family descended on him like a pack of wolves. Better late than never, I suppose. But I had never seen anything like it before. My father was practically backed right up to the restaurant's front door. Then most of the crowd flooded back inside with him to have it out with my mother too. My grandparents stayed with me and apologized for having their eyes shut so tightly for so long. I don't know what was said to my parents in the restaurant, but it was roughly half an hour before they came back out. When they did, they looked incredibly defeated. My mother was still sniffling after crying so hard, and neither my parents could look me in the eyes. They both awkwardly apologized for what they had done and offered to redo the party elsewhere. But that wasn't really enough for the crowd. One of my uncles said, ahem, rather loudly, and my parents said they would never make me let my sister blow out my candles again, give her presents on my birthday, or make any part of it about her. There was another ahem, and my parents also apologized for getting me a cake that was obviously not meant for me. They said they felt like I wasn't worried about cake anymore at my age. Oh boy, was that the wrong thing to say? I became furious all over again and yelled at them that my age was irrelevant. They had literally given my birthday to my sister and had no good reason for it. Then I said there was no point in redoing the party because it was too damn late. They clearly showed that I meant nothing to them. They ruined 8 years of my life until I became an adult. What future birthdays with them could I possibly look forward to? Well, my father started to get angry at me for saying that, but when the entire family yelled at him, he shut up. My grandfather told him I was exactly right and there was no possible way they could undo the damage now. He said my parents were awful people, played favorites, and treated me like a black sheep ever since my sister was born. What's more is they were all awful themselves because they just let it happen too. I was owed far more than an apology. I was owed my life back. My mother broke down again and tried to come closer to me while crying my name and apologizing, but I refused to let her get anywhere near me. Half the family blocked her from getting close, and I said I couldn't take it anymore and started to walk away. One of my aunts chased me down and brought me back. I could hear multiple family members yelling and cussing at my parents over what happened, but I was so upset I couldn't even feel happy for any bit of justice after all this time. Also, where was my sister when all of this was going on? She was still in the restaurant, all by herself, eating cake and ripping open presents that were meant for me. And if anyone was wondering, yes, my parents served her some cake after I cried and walked out. You think that doing that wouldn't be their primary focus in the moment, but they were called out on it later. My grandparents got me to calm down and sit in their old minivan while everyone else cleared out the party. My sister threw a huge tantrum after being caught opening my presents, one of which was a brand new smartphone that she threw against the wall and broke because she wasn't allowed to keep it. She had just gotten a brand new phone on her own birthday a few months earlier. I ended up being so upset that I was ranting that I never wanted to celebrate my birthday again, and my grandparents let me stay the night at their house. When I came home, I still didn't speak to my parents. My mother just kept crying because I wouldn't talk to her, and my father was as closed-mouthed as me. The following weekend, my grandparents convinced me to go with them out to dinner. When we got there, I was surprised to find a whole new party waiting for me. My parents were there, and they kept up with a "don't hate us" smiles on their faces almost the entire time. There was a big chocolate cake with 18 candles on it, and there was even a banner with my name. They called it my happy belated birthday graduation party because I didn't really get either this year. I did have to pretend to be happy. One good party doesn't undo 8 years of favoritism or even make a dent in it, really. And where was my sister? She was sitting at the table with her arms folded and her lips curled because it wasn't all about her like it used to be. Rather than singing happy birthday for me, they just sang an altered version called Happy Day. As soon as I blew out the candles, my sister let out an ear-bleedingly loud little girl scream. My parents had to rush her out and then bring her back in later, looking more upset than ever. She quietly pouted in her seat for the rest of the party. I did still get a new smartphone as well, and my sister got hers taken away, among other things, for what she did at the prior party. But the smartphone wasn't all. The whole family had chipped in and gotten me a car. It was an old white Volvo, but I loved it the moment I laid eyes on it. My grandfather knows a thing or two about cars and fixed them up himself. I was so happy, but my sister clearly was not. She let out another one of those screams and started having a massive tantrum, demanding a car, too. My mother had to take her into the bathroom, and they didn't come back out for a while. My father just went back to looking defeated. My sister had effectively ruined their attempt at trying to look good in front of the whole family. Multiple family members also had strong words for my parents, saying that my sister was acting that way because they raised her to be a princess spoiled brat. I obviously started driving the car around right away, but only days later, my sister vandalized the car by taking a hammer and breaking 2 of the side windows and cracking the windshield to the point where the car was undrivable. My parents managed to stop her before she did any more damage, but she screamed nonsense when they grabbed her and took the hammer away. Then she tried to bite them. Everyone was furious with my sister, especially my grandparents, because my grandfather had put so much work into that car, and my sister ruined it while having a massive tantrum. Several other family members laid into my parents about how they were setting my sister up for failure by making her an entitled brat who expects the world to be given to her. They pointed out that she's going to have a terrible adult life because they won't put their feet down and teach her some respect. Her actions didn't go unpunished. My sister was grounded for the rest of the summer, and effective the new school year, she was sent to boarding school. My mother cried like a baby about it, but my father had to be adamant that it was the only way to start undoing the damage they'd done. Yes, they fully acknowledged that they are at fault. It was kind of hard for them not to, since no one sided with them at all. My sister is absolutely miserable at that school. She hates the clothes, she hates the rules, and she's been lying almost constantly. But with cameras almost everywhere now, she's not getting away with any of it. Our parents tried to visit her a few times, but she just screamed at them for putting her in that place. From what I hear, this may be her school life until she's 18 years old. My parents did pay to fix my car. They had an auto glass company replace the windows and windshield, and it looks just as it did before. In August, my grandfather came to me and said that if I was interested, he had found me a job working for a friend, but it was 40 miles away, so I would need to move out of my parents' house unless I wanted that commute. I was all for moving out, but finding my first apartment wasn't so easy. I had to get approved for a credit card just to be accepted for a studio, but I finally got it, and I have been living where I am now since September. My parents keep trying to contact me, but I rarely speak to them. Anytime we do speak, I just feel awkward and uncomfortable. My grandfather has suggested that they simply don't want to acknowledge how badly they failed as parents, and trying to get me to forgive them will make them feel better about themselves or something like that. But I'm not going to forgive them anytime soon. I'm finally happy and away from them. Now they've got nothing. They don't have me and they don't have my sister. My parents had to take on more hours at work because boarding school for my sister is not cheap, nor can I imagine the party they had to throw for me or the repairs to my car. They now have an empty house and angry relatives, and the only thing they have left is their work. It feels like incredible misery to me. I don't take delight in it, but it is the result of their own actions after all. r/pro revenge. Karen wants $1,000 cash for $10 coupon sent to wrong address. Pays more in legal fees. This story's from a few years ago when I worked in the legal department of a national retailer with over 1,000 stores. As part of my job, I handled customer complaints that escalated when the customer threatened legal action. Our customer service call center forwarded Karen's call to me after she threatened legal action. Karen left a message claiming that she was not provided with $10 in customer reward coupons, spent $200, receive a $10 coupon in the mail sort of thing. This was before apps, based on her purchase of clothing for her son and daughter for back to school. I looked into it and called Karen back. It turned out that we had an old address associated with her rewards account. No big deal, right? I spoke with Karen and offered to send her the original $10 coupon and an additional $25 for her trouble to the correct address. However, that did not satisfy Karen. She claimed we should have known her address and threatened to sue us if we didn't pay her $1,000 in cash. Her rationale was that it would cost us at least $1,000 to defend the suit. She was in a state in which our company did not have any offices, so we should just pay it to her. I declined, of course, but still forwarded her the $10 coupon she was entitled to pursuant to our rewards program. Sure enough, she sued us for breach of contract, fraud, and any other conceivable charge. I went to my boss, the COO, and told him the story. He asked what I wanted to do. I said I'd rather pay legal fees to a defense attorney than pay Karen, and he agreed. So I contacted outside counsel, our awesome attorney, explained the situation to him, and he said, in a southern drawl, "I get to sue Karen, I should be paying you guys. There are a lot of lawyers in this legal community who would love to sue her as she is reckless, unpleasant, and a total pain in the ass to deal with. I'll gladly take your case." He agreed to defend us at a reduced rate. Part of our defense strategy was to countersue her under the state's frivolous lawsuit statute, which would move the suit from a small claims court to the larger civil court. Awesome attorney filed our answer and counterclaim. Although Karen was an attorney, she was not a defense attorney, so she had to engage her own attorney to defend against the counterclaim. After a couple of hearings, she offered to settle for no more money exchange. She didn't even get the extra $25 coupon I offered her and the dismissal of both suits. I talked with awesome attorney about continuing our claim, but he advised that it would probably be worth settling and being done with it rather than being vindictive. Although being vindictive would have been fun, courts tend not to like that, so I agreed. My company ended up paying awesome attorney $900 in attorney's fees. An awesome attorney later called and told us that the attorney Karen engaged charged her $1,700 to defend the suit. Although I would have liked to continue with our suit, I think her having to pay $1,700 over a $10 coupon sent to the wrong address is sufficient justice.